Some of the meetings, events that have taken place since our last update. We were in New York City for the UN Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues. I also attended a special All-Ontario Chiefs Conference, which was held in Toronto on April 17th, 18th, and 19th. The main agenda item at that event was the restructuring of the Chiefs of Ontario. Also had a meeting with the new Executive Director of the Ontario First Nations Technical Services Corporation, who was Melanie Dubosky. And at the end of that week, I attended an Aboriginal Affairs Committee with the City of Toronto. On April 23rd, we did have officials here from both the federal and provincial government to discuss the legalization of cannabis and some of the stuff they've been doing. They met with Council and with the Cannabis Task Force. And later that evening, Barb General, the Director of Justice, and I traveled to Hamilton for the opening of Hamilton Justice Collaboratory, which is a boldness project for people who are involved in the justice system. On the 26th, I attended the grand opening of Food Basics in Caledonia and was thankful for the donation they made to Ellen Rose from the Six Nations Food Bank of $1,000. Later that day, we had a visit at Six Nations from President Lal Khan Malik, who is the president of the Ahmadiyya Jamaat Muslims. He brought a group of people with him, and we spent the afternoon with him. And on the 27th, I had the honor to attend a retirement gala dinner for Dave Levac, who is retiring as a MPP for Brant. On the 28th, I traveled to Markham and took part in a town hall in Minister Jane Philpott's writing. Glad to see that Jeff Burnham from goodminds.com was there as well with a number of books. On April 30th, Councillor Mark Hill and I had a short meeting with Minister Carolyn Bennett, the Crown Indigenous Relations, and that's where we informed her to remove Six Nations' name off this list of roundtables who are having discussions. I also had a call with the Deputy Minister of Tourism, Sport and Culture to talk about a sports body in Ontario. And then I attended a Chiefs meeting, Women's Chiefs meeting in Ottawa on April 30th, which was hosted by Minister Bennett. The Assembly of First Nations held a special assembly in Gatineau on May 1st and 2nd with a number of ministers and the Prime Minister there. And on May 1st, the 5 large First Nations in Ontario, which include Six Nations, Tayan, Danaga, Oneida, Wikwemekong, and Akwesasne, we met with Minister Jane Philpott to look at how we could get more funding to the 5 large First Nations, because we are always getting the short end of the stick, I guess, on the formulas that are established. So we're looking at different options, because we don't want to be seen to be taking money away from any of the other First Nations. So we're looking at other options as to how she might help. And on May 2nd, I was a guest speaker at an Indigenous Policing Forum in Ottawa to talk about police services as an essential service. And May 3rd, Indigenous Services held a joint gathering in Toronto on May 3rd and 4th, which I found to be quite interesting because all of the top people from Indigenous Service Toronto were there, and it was a good networking and a lot of side events that happened, so and a lot of information. I also had a meeting with the Chiefs Committee on Energy. We all know we got the delivery charge off of our residents' bills for our hydro bills now, and now we're working on to ensure that it gets off for all band-owned buildings. Once we accomplish that, we want to also get it to apply to businesses and then eventually our off-reserve members. On May 8th, I did take part in a meeting at the Native Canadian Centre in Toronto with some of the agencies, urban Aboriginal agencies in Toronto, as well as the Ministry of Tourism, Culture and Sport. And we're talking about the redesign of Ontario Place and how we can ensure that there's Indigenous content in there. And I'm there to make sure that Six Nations is also involved, and we can get some of our history and culture displayed there. And maybe if there's concerts and venues over the years, that we can also get Six Nations artists and craftspeople there. And on May 10th, I was the speaker at the Salvation Army Mountain Church in Hamilton in the evening of May 10th.